Another feature that is extremely helpful that's built into Final Cut Pro 10 is the ability to add and edit captions. And depending on the type of project you're making, you may not find captions that important, but I gotta tell you, it is an extremely valuable resource to have, and to be able to add those captions, it just expands your audience, allows you to reach a lot of additional people that maybe you wouldn't have been able to reach without adding them. So in this video, we're going to look at how to add captions to a project. In order to do this, I'm going to hide the transitions browser, and we're going to take a look at this project here. And we're just going to do a couple quick clips. Adding captions can be very time consuming because you have to essentially translate your project and the dialogue that's being added into text on the screen. So to add a caption, you're just going to drag your playhead over to where you want to add it. So we'll just start at the beginning of this project. Then you're going to go up to the Edit menu, down to Captions, and you'll say Add Caption. You're going to add a caption for about every 2 lines of dialogue or so. So this is something you'll do very frequently. So get used to this shortcut, Option C. Option C also adds a caption. When you do that, you'll notice a little bar gets put at the top of our timeline with the caption, and we can start typing in what's said. So if you're not sure what's said, you're going to have to go back here and play back your project. So I'm going to hit the space bar.
Don't keep secrets, yeah?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. It distances you from people.
Yep.
And you
So Simon at the beginning here does have a pretty large piece of dialogue that he starts with. We kind of cut in right in the middle of it. But if you hear,
don't keep secrets, yeah?
He's saying, don't keep secrets, yeah? That's his line there. So I'm going to add that in. So I'm going to double click the caption and say, don't keep secrets, yeah? And then Ralph replies, yeah, no. And then I'll click outside, and you can see already in the viewer here, we see our dialogue coming up on the screen. So I'll play it back.
Don't keep secrets, yeah?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. Yeah?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So right when he ends, then we get the next line of dialogue. So I'm going to use Option C to add the next one. And this is where Ralph responds. Put a comma in. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. It distances you from people.
Yep.
It
And then we'll drag this one back a little bit shorter. And I'm going to add another one. So Option C. And we're going to get his next line of dialogue. And I'm clicking outside of it, going back just to check this.
It distances you from people.
Yep.
And you can't keep them forever.
Yep.
And you can't.
Like a little bit longer. I'm going to double click on you. The reply is down there, which is yep.
It distances you from people.
Yep.
And you can't keep them forever.
Nah.
No.
And we'll add another one, Option C.
You can't keep them forever.
Nah.
No. You can't keep them forever.
Nah.
No.
I think he says no twice there.
You can't keep them forever.
Nah.
No. Really?
I think you get the idea. We're adding these different clips that represent each of those captions. Now, you can select all of these captions and use the inspector to change the formatting of these captions. And I won't get too technical with this, but you want to understand that there are formats and standards that you need to adhere to with these captions. So at the top of this bar, we can see that this format is ITT, which is the iTunes format, and it marks these as roles. If you think we were marking the audio with roles before, this is a role for this caption, and it's set to the English ITT role, which is fine. That's great. Based on that format, you're going to have some options for how you actually visually want to format these captions. And this is not just titles and text that you can format any way you want. You are limited to the way that you can format these captions. So what you see here are the options you can get. So as an example, I've selected all of those caption tracks. I could change it. Maybe I want them on the top versus the bottom. I get that option there. I can see validation-wise, there's no problems detected. So everything is looking pretty good. If you have a single caption track selected, you'll see the actual text is listed there, so you can edit it here in the inspector versus on the timeline. So what about this format? Let's say you don't want an ITT format. Maybe you need a different format. You can actually go up here and hit Edit Roles to make a change to those caption roles that show up. So in this case, I can see ITT is there, but I'm actually going to add an additional caption role. And right now, Final Cut has three options. We can do ITT, we can do a standard, which is CEA 608, or I can do the SRT format. So depending on your needs, you'll want to select an option here. Let's do the CEA format because that's very popular. We'll just keep it as CEA for the name. You can certainly go in here and change the names to change the markings on that. And then right now we're doing English. You could hit this plus to add in an additional language if you're doing translations into other languages. You get those options here in Final Cut. But for now, we're just going to keep this to English, keep it nice and simple, and I'm going to hit Apply. So now that I've done that, if I open up my index, you can see we actually have a captions option here now that we were not seeing there before. And we can use this to navigate between all of the captions. And this is very helpful. If you can caption your project, you can actually search for specific lines of dialogue and be able to find that area on the project pretty quickly. So if you know, I know he said the word distances, I can start typing in distance. There it is. If I click on it, it jumps to right to that portion of the project. So you can see how these captions, in addition to being there on the screen, can be helpful with your final product, but you can use all of those captions to navigate your project. And in addition to clip connections with B-roll, you have clip connections with all of these captions. So if I were to move this clip, maybe a little bit later, notice all of the captions here go with it. So if I were to rearrange these clips, those captions are going with it. So that's a really nice feature and allows you to not waste time. It's not like you're adding these captions and then having to redo it every single time. It'll get connected to those clips and then stay there for the rest of your editing. So that's the caption thing that gets added here. But if we go back to roles, you'll notice under roles, in addition to the video and audio, we now have a caption section, and we can see our ITT version of these captions. And I can actually click on that to select all of those captions. And in this case, I actually want to change the role for this caption. I actually want these all to be the CEA format. So with them all selected, I can right-click on the caption and go to Assign Caption Roles, and I get an option here for the CEA English version. I'm going to select English there. And when you're converting between different formats, you may get a warning here letting you know that you might lose some text. There may be some differences between those formats. And that's why it's very important that you go back and review all your captions if you do have to change formats. But I'm going to say that's okay, and we'll hit Continue. And what you'll notice is a couple things change. First, on the timeline, you'll notice we get a red caption here instead of them all being blue. And up in the inspector, you might also notice a couple new options here. We actually get a bunch of color options and some different placement options. So that's one reason you might want to use the CEA format versus ITT is you get various formatting options available because this standard gives you other options that you can work with, like color. And I'd recommend playing around with those and seeing what's there. But we can definitely see at the bottom here, our validation, we do have some errors that we have to work through. And if we go into the captions timeline index, it'll also mark them as red so we can see those errors listed. However, in this case, it's very clear what's happening here. This first caption is what's having the issue, so we can see it. We don't have to navigate to it. If I click on that caption and look in the inspector and go down to the bottom here, the validation is very useful. It lets us know exactly what's wrong here. The caption occurs too close to the beginning of the project. How can we fix it? We have to move that caption 16 frames later. It tells us exactly how to fix this, which is really cool. So I can just click and drag the beginning of this over to the right, and I want to drag it over 16 frames. But you can see it's kind of hard. I can't actually get to 16 frames here, and that's because snapping is turned on. So this is one of the examples where you'll want to go over and click on this button or press the N key on the keyboard to disable snapping. And now we can actually really precisely drag this caption over. I know I need to go 16 frames. So looking at that little pop-up, you can see the second number there, it has a little plus sign. So let's know I'm going forward 16 frames, and I'll let go of it. I think I let go 1 frame too far. It's still not there. Let's go another frame. There we go. Now we can see it went blue. I'm now validating correctly. If I select the caption here, I can look up into my problems. It's saying no problems detected. Nothing's red. The index looks good. We're now validating correctly with these captions. So that means if I go to export this, shouldn't run into any errors. We should be validated correctly. And then we are going to look at sharing and exporting in much greater detail later, but I just want to show you, if you do go up and click on the share menu at the top left and share this project out, let's say as a master file, I'm going to click on roles, and then under the roles section is where we can see those captions listed here. So we see our CEA captions are listed, and I could enable those to let those be exported even as a separate file. We have those options there. Also on the right side, we can see captions all here is listed. I can see it's embedding those CEA 608 into this file format. You could also even burn in the captions. So a bunch of options here that we can get, and we'll look at those when we get into exporting and sharing later in this course. But this is a way for you to add those captions. I bring this up early in the course. You may not want to add those captions until your project is nearing completion. However, if you have a really rough cut that's pretty close to what the script is going to follow, adding these captions can be very helpful to do early on for navigation and finding things in your project. So that's an overview of editing with Final Cut, and you should have enough now as far as the tools to be able to edit a rough cut of your project. Over the next couple lessons, we're going to dive into adding effects, refining our edit, and doing a lot more specific work. So if you feel like your movie's kind of a mess still, even though you've seen some of how to edit, don't worry. The next couple videos are definitely going to help refine your skills and make you even more powerful of an editor with Final Cut Pro.